we're not just a software company. We're also a services company. We're also, there to be that resource like you described. I want our team who has implemented thousands and thousands of builders to be an extension and a resource for all of our clients. There's no reason that they have to keep making the same mistakes over and over and over, when they can tap into that collective wisdom, that knowledge, that experience that we have. We want to share that, and we want to help educate as many builders as we possibly can about what they need to do to build scalable businesses that can be highly profitable, so that they're not just continuing to churn and driving more sales but not putting any more money on the bottom line. Like that is not the way to do it. And I think that there's a lot of opportunity, to create this community around JobTread, around the software that really inspires, motivates, educates, and trains people to also implement the systems, the processes, the standards, the SOPs, everything that goes around making a software successful.
What's up, guys? Welcome back to the podcast on site. Today we have a special guest. His name is Eric, the CEO and founder of JobTread. If any of you guys are out there trying to figure out how to organize and manage your construction projects, we have one of the fastest growing construction management software tools on the market here with us today, and I'm excited to dive into this. Eric, thank you so much for doing this. Tell us a little bit about yourself. Where are you and what got you into this business?
Yeah, appreciate you having me on, Brandon. It's great to be here. So yeah, my name's Eric Fortenberry. I'm the founder and CEO of JobTread. I guess started this actually when I took over a buddy of mine's construction company back in 2018, where I actually built out the first version of what is now JobTread. Their business was just struggling to scale. They're about 5 years in, had around 10 employees doing about $5 million in revenue, but just like they hit this glass ceiling, really lacked systems, processes, very chaotic type situation that I ended up finding out is commonplace in the industry. And so they asked me to come in, help them figure out how to get the business to the next level, how to keep scaling it. And originally my gut was like, man, you guys just need some software. Let's get some systems going. I looked at everything out there. I was like, man, this is pretty antiquated or really expensive, hard to customize. And they were like, well, you're a software guy. Can't you just build us something? I'm like, well, hold on. Not trying to take on, another project here, and really didn't think they were in the best position to be able to maintain this, moving forward. But, long story short, I ended up agreeing to take over the business. I told them I'd give them 1 year of my time, and we built this out of a needs basis. And so we were able to grow that business from 5 million to 8 million in sales that year. We increased their gross profit by 43% and helped them to scale the amount of concurrent jobs that they could manage, just really growing the business as a whole. And so after that 1 year, 2019 is when I officially started JobTread, recruited my best developer, designer, CFO from my last software company. We set this up, built for a few years, ended up started selling it in 2021, got it to about 200 companies. 2022, we got to 1,000. Then we got to 2,200. Last year, we ended at 4,500. We actually just passing 7,000 construction companies on JobTread today. So it's very quickly grown on us. And we work with any type of construction contractor, builder, from commercial builders, home builders, remodelers, pool builders, deck builders, roofing, like you name it. We very intentionally have designed this to work for any type of construction company, as long as you're custom bidding, all of your jobs. And it's not just kind of a, service-based business. This is, really, geared towards, managing the budgets, trades, all of the project management, everything that goes into building out a complex project. We can help you scale that.
Awesome, man. That's an intense story. 7,000 users.
Yep. Well,
what did it
is
feel
probably,
like?
I don't know, 40 to 50,000, but 7,000 companies.
Yeah. 7,000 companies. But so when you got your first 1,000 companies, I mean, did that feel like anything, or were you already moving on to the next, kind of step in the process?
Yeah, I mean, that was a huge milestone, obviously. Every 1,000 is really exciting. It's something that, it's just awesome to have that traction and have that many people, willing to trust us. And, look, early on, we definitely didn't even have, half the functionality that we have now. At this point, we're pretty much feature parity with, every major project management estimating system out there. We even have the on-screen takeoff all built in. So, I'd say those early customers, I mean, man, like I'll forever be, indebted to them for being willing to take a risk and, choosing us and believing that we could continue to deliver. And, I think that's what our customers today would say, is that we continue to have that very personalized experience, high level of customer service, and we're continuing to put out, new features, updates, constantly listening to our customer base to keep improving the application based on their feedback. And I think oftentimes that's sort of what happens with a lot of large software companies, is they sort of stop listening, and they stop making those continual updates. And I think for us, we just very much appreciate our customers. We want to be right there alongside them, learning how we can make this thing better every day. And I think we've done a great job building a very collaborative community around it.
No, I think it's an amazing product. I used Builder Trend back in the day when I was managing projects, and I can tell you firsthand, it was super, super clunky, very expensive. I felt like I was in a giant bottleneck, and it was my software. And a lot of the contractors inside of our community, most of them for that matter, are actually using JobTread. Some of them have shifted from other things like Builder Trend and Co-Construct. And I'm not trying to, unpromote them and promote you. It's nothing like that. This is real conversation. These people have literally shifted from one product to another for whatever reason. I'm not gonna, get into that, but they've shifted from one product to another. But one of the people that stands out the most, his name is Chad, and he was actually on the podcast. And so he is not a super tech savvy guy, nor am I. I have people around me that help with that. But his constant feedback about how amazing JobTread is and how incredible the support system is, and how, his success manager's doing this and doing that. It just feels like in some way, shape, or form, you guys are not just a software in his business. You're like a resource huddle team around him, helping him. And he is killing it right now as well. Like his sales are like in a whole nother category of life. They've never been there. He's been doing this for 25 years. And, the software side of it is a huge part. It's probably one of the most important. It's the way you present yourself to your client. The client is either going to get a chicken scratch handwritten estimate on a carbon copy, or they're going to get a great proposal that's organized, tracked, and managed. And, JobTread does that perfectly, in my opinion. So, I mean, just 10,000, I think, for you is around the corner, probably sooner than you think.
Yeah, absolutely. That's certainly the new goal. I mean, we're truly on a mission here to become the standard for construction management, and the way to do that is to get it into tens of thousands, eventually hundreds of thousands of contractors' hands all around the world. That they're able to use it and benefit and grow their business and have success. I think though, kind of back to your earlier point, like all credit, where credit is due. I mean, thanks to Builder Trend and Co-Construct. I mean, they truly did set the wave here that sparked all of these builders actually looking at how can technology improve our processes, and how can we, adopt technology to better scale and grow. And, I think without them, again, kind of bringing this to the forefront 15, 20 years ago, I mean, it's 2005, is when they both started. So, 20 years ago, that was a huge thing that needed to happen. And really, they got all the early adopters, and now we're kind of getting into that, we've crossed the chasm. We're getting to, kind of the main group of them. We got some of the laggers coming in too. But like, at the end of the day, like we had a huge advantage. We had late mover advantage that, we got to study everything out there, what was working, what wasn't working, kept the best of all of that, improved on the things that weren't working, and just leveraging modern technology to create an easier to use, a much faster application, easier to learn, to train on, a lot more customizable, flexible. I mean, and so, we've had that advantage of being able to kind of come in several years later to actually, build out something a lot faster, just with better technology. And so to some extent, when you've grown to the size that they have, it's very difficult for them to keep making changes and improvements, because every change is affecting so many people. And this is just kind of nature of the beast with software. We could roll out a module that like prints money, and somehow some people would still be, upset that something changed or something was added. And so, I think as you get bigger and bigger, that does become more of a challenge. But, again, I think that, what we've been able to do is create that system. And it's not just like the software. Like I tell people, like, we're not just a software company. We're also a services company. We're also there to be that resource like you described. I want our team, who has implemented thousands and thousands of builders, to be an extension and a resource for all of our clients. There's no reason that they have to keep making the same mistakes over and over and over, when they can tap into that collective wisdom, that knowledge, that experience that we have. We want to share that, and we want to help educate as many builders as we possibly can about what they need to do to build scalable businesses that can be highly profitable, so that they're not just continuing to churn and driving more sales but not putting any more money on the bottom line. Like that is not the way to do it. And I think that there's a lot of opportunity to create this community around JobTread, around the software, that really inspires, motivates, educates, and trains people to also implement the systems, the processes, the standards, the SOPs, everything that goes around making a software successful.
When you mentioned that Buildertrend and CoConstruct experienced that risk of making that micro change, right? They do a software change and they're affecting thousands and thousands of people. I think that what you're doing with your community, how you're kind of bringing everyone together, and you have this, questionnaire area where people can kind of throw their ideas down. I think what you might find actually is that collectively as a group or as a whole or as a community, they're all going to want those changes, and so technology is moving very quick. Like AI is moving faster than the speed of whatever. And so, your product in the next 24 months might not look anything like it does today. And the cool part about your product is that you're asking like the contractors about the changes. You're not forcing them on people. And I think that's what really sets you apart from other people, is that you have this resource team of people that are really, really focused on working with the contractors so they get what they want. Because, even being in the coaching space and out of the contracting space, you kind of lose sight of a few of the things that are in the field. Even for you, in a certain sense, you were working with a contracting company and then you shifted fully into software. So some of the things in the field may be memory, but they may have already changed, right? And so same thing with me. And so I think having that communication platform really is what will set you apart. One of the things that I learned early on in business was, if you can exceed client expectation, you can find a way to over communicate, over deliver, solve the problem, everything else follows itself. And, that's exactly, in my opinion, what I perceive what you're doing with your clients is you're really giving them a space to talk to you about what they want to see and how they want to see it. And with technology changing, I'm excited to see what it's going to look like in the next, couple of years, because it's going to be, it's wild right now.
Absolutely. I do think, what you're describing is our feature request board. And I think the value of that is, like, it doesn't require us to continually reevaluate what we think is the most important things. Like, we get to just quantify and track and collect all of this feedback, and that directly feeds into our development roadmap. And it helps us to understand what changes can we make that are going to make the biggest impact on all of our customers. And I think, ultimately this also relates back to our pricing model. A lot of software companies out there, they charge you based on the features you're using, or, kind of the usage that you have, or things like that. And, like, when you have these feature-based buckets, it really prioritizes your research and development on, do we build what's going to make us the most money, even though it's only going to, maybe benefit the top 10 or 20% of our customer base, or do we do what's going to make the biggest impact on all of our customers? And so, like, that's why I really love our pricing model. There's a base fee, and then each additional user, it's another $20, and that even scales down. But, like, I think that's the best, most fair way, so that a solo owner operator isn't paying the same thing as a 10 person, 20 person, 50, 100 person company. As you grow and scale, as you add more, employees and team members, like, then the price goes with you. But, like, it's not based on, like, do you need this feature or that feature? Because, like, when you have that, and what I've seen in a lot of the companies out there that do that is they just keep shifting the features into the higher buckets, and they're trying to drive, the people into those higher buckets. And then, they're building the things and only adding to the higher bucket. For us, like, every single feature, every enhancement, everything we add, everyone benefits. And at the end of the day, that means that we don't have to worry about, focusing all this time and effort and money on, implementing things that only some of our customers are going to, benefit. It gives it to everyone. I really like this collaborative approach, and I think too, like, our Facebook group, you're talking about how we, really do a good job keeping a pulse on everything and communicating. Like, I spend a lot of time in JobTread Pros, which we have, I think, 6,900 members in that Facebook group. And that is such a great way for me to keep that pulse on what people are saying, the challenges, the things that they love, the things they want to see change. Like, I don't understand how every business owner doesn't have that type of community with their clients where they can engage like that. I mean, it means that I can answer one person's question directly, but everybody else can see it and learn from it. Yeah. Versus if they called in, or if it was just responding to one email, like, nobody else gets that wisdom, right? Like, we get to, like, share it in this community forum. And I think these community-led, movements are just such a great way to build out, new companies, new services and products.
Chad actually had mentioned about the community, the Facebook group, and how just impactful that was. He said, I could literally just sit there. Like, some of the conversations are way over and above him. He's, in the level 1, maybe level 3 phase of implementing JobTread into his business. We have other contractors that we're working with, Josh and John. They've been, with you guys for a while now, over a year and a half, I think. And, they're just implementing a higher level. I don't know exactly what this level is, but somebody's coming into their business actually and helping them optimize their JobTread to a whole nother level. And so when I was talking with them about that, it really opened my mind to the customization and the different features that exist with this. And so when Chad was saying, I'll go look at this Facebook group, and some of the conversations that are had in there are at my level, and then some are at another level. And it's just cool to see that spread. And it gives you, I think, like, we have a similar space in our community where, people post and talk about things. And what I really like about that is that if one guy's, doing $4 or $5 million in sales, posts up about a huge project, just locked in $500,000 job or whatever it might be, another guy's starting at a lower level and there's they're locked in a $20,000-$30,000 job, it gives them like fuel to chase that next opportunity. Yeah. And so I like that you have the Facebook community open-ended like that, so that it gives these other people different perspectives to really give them motivation, because we all need a little bit of motivation, and when our community is just fulfilling that, it's really fulfilling for everyone. So I love that you're doing that, and I really love what you guys are doing with this. I have a question. So you had you were software. I was curious what you did. You mentioned you were in software. And so before JobTread, obviously you were in a previous software. What was the software?
My first company was OrgSync. And so I actually, when I was a student at the University of Texas at Austin, I ran a student organization. And so we managed all of these members and had to grow it. And ultimately I graduated, and my buddy Alex, he's my VP, sales and marketing at the last company, COO of this company, he took over that organization and he ran it and grew it. And we ultimately ended up creating a solution for student organizations to manage their members, to get more people involved, all the forms, paperwork, dues, events, and that sort of morphed into working directly with the departments of student life on these college campuses. And they wanted a way to oversee and manage all the organizations. And so, we created this umbrella portal, if you will. And then all the other departments within student affairs said, hey, we want that too, for the fraternities and sororities and the rec sports and the residence life. And ultimately we walked up and we started selling to the division of student affairs. And then we had, the division of academic affairs and all these other, areas within the campus that ultimately we kept walking all the way up, and we started selling this as, really kind of like a white labeled, gated community for these universities and colleges. And we ended up taking it to, it was like over 650 universities in 13 countries, had over 20 million users on our application. Wow. And it ultimately became this way to, right when new students got to campus, the goal was to get them engaged, involved, making connections with other students, because that directly impacted the students' likelihood of staying and moving forward. The retention rate of students was very, important to the universities. And so the quicker that we could help them get involved, the more likely they were to stay. And so, ultimately we had a global, company, huge web app, that if anyone's kids out there were in college from around 2007 to 2015, your children may or may not have known that they were using our software, because again, a lot of the universities, they kind of white labeled it. It looked like it was on their .edu, but we were powering all of the communications, all the involvement, really everything outside the classroom was our software.
So you were prior building community type products already, focused on engagement. Yeah. Which is which is incredible, because when you connect that to a tool of utilization, it really is a different focus. A lot of other people are typically focused on creating the tool, which is what you also did as well. But having the community experience behind you and how to grow that, I think, is visible inside of how JobTread is created. So really it was a life journey getting to this point with, these 7,000 clients that you have right now. And I'm excited, just be a small little part of this. We send a couple little contractors your way here and there, and, every little bit counts. But the best part is, it's not like we're sending people to a product that we support. We're sending people to a product that actually adds value to their business. So it's the easiest collaborative connection possible. And I love watching the contractors grow inside of our community utilizing this product. So you're a father, you're a husband, and you're based out of Texas. Tell us a little bit about your family too, because obviously any entrepreneur that's listening to this understands that being an entrepreneur, having a family, having kids is a balancing act, because generally you're 1000% into your business. And I'm
Yeah.
just interested to hear a little bit about, the other side of Eric.
Yeah, no, my wife is my better half, Deja. She's incredible. I tell people I really don't know how I would be alive or my children would be alive without her. So I'm very blessed and very fortunate to have such a caring, loving wife who really truly takes care of our family. Really she manages the household, and so if it wasn't for her, I wouldn't be able to do what I do. As you said, I mean, being an entrepreneur, it is a 1,000%. Even when you are home, it's very hard to turn off all of the thinking and the thoughts in the back of your mind. And I certainly think that it's very important to find ways that you can get away and connect. Like we're actually on Thursday, we're headed up to Canada, to your neck of the woods. We're going to Banff for a week, and I think that what my wife and I have learned is the best way for us to connect and to really kind of get me away from the office as best as possible, and is to take kind of just vacations and trips. And so we love to travel. When we first met, she had actually moved away to Madrid to teach English to elementary school students. And so the very basis of our relationship earlier on was with us doing a lot of traveling. We traveled all over Europe. We ended up getting married in Lake Como, Italy. Honeymooned all
Cool.
over, like Croatia, Greece, things like that. And so, we're really passionate about traveling. We love that. We've got a 7-year-old and a 6-year-old, about to be 8 and 7. They're 14 months apart. We didn't get the memo that you get pregnant right after you have a child. So to anyone out there who also didn't get that memo or hadn't figured that out yet, be careful. But we love having them so close. They really are each other's best friends. Which is super awesome. But yeah, again, they're kind of reached that age where we're able to travel, spend time, kind of just showing them the world. And it's not just Texas, our here in Dallas, our flatland, very few trees. We get to show them all over, which I think is a really great way for us to really connect and bond. I every day though, I wake up and try to see him, spend time with him over breakfast. Try to get home by dinner, or maybe a little bit after, but always there to read to them, put them to bed every night. Cool thing that over the summer, since they're not in school, they've been coming up to the office a lot more with me, kind of really seeing what I do every day, getting to understand what being an entrepreneur means. And at the end of the day, I mean, I want them to be able to do whatever they're passionate about doing. And if they want to be entrepreneurs, awesome, I love it. If they want to be vets, doctors, painters, artists, whatever it is, like I wholeheartedly support that. But I think it's really neat for them to be able to see what it's like building a company. And really, I mean, this JobTread started when right after my son was born, and so he's kind of grown up, and but both of them have gotten to see what it means to to be the boss and to come in every day and to lead by example, and be the first one in, the last one out. Like I hope at the end of the day they see a work ethic, because that's what I learned from my father. He was also a serial entrepreneur, and I saw how he took control of his own destiny by being an entrepreneur, and I think it's so valuable and so rewarding when you don't just have to kind of fall in line with every single everyone else and go get your standard job and work for someone else. You're punching in and out, and it's like, I tell people I haven't worked a day in my life, and that's because I'm so passionate and I'm doing what I want to do every single day. And I can only hope that my children can be able to follow their passions and figure out ways to set themselves up to build a successful business, organization, focus, whatever it may be. It's all about truly following your heart. And I try to do the best I can, just wearing my heart on my sleeve and showing them how trying to model it by my own behavior.
No, I can see all of that in you as well. Like when we first started, engaging with each other several months ago, I knew that I could tell that you were just a genuine person, and you wear your heart on your sleeve just like that. And I'm excited for you to come to Canada and experience Banff. It's one of the most beautiful places on earth. I sent you a couple little opportunities there for you to do. You will be impressed. It's stunning, especially throughout the summer. It's stunning. So I'm excited for you guys. That's going to be awesome. I talk about my son quite a bit. My kids, like I've got my daughter's entering into grade 9. And so she still doesn't know what she wants to do, but they're going to force her to figure out what she wants to do because that's just how the system works.
Yeah.
By grade 10, if you don't know what you're doing, you must have, you're a lost cause. So that was happening to my son actually when he was into grade 10. They're like, yeah, what do you want to do? He's like, I don't know. And this year he took some passion with welding out of nowhere. I don't know where this came from. He said he just wants to build things. So I'm like, okay. So he took a course, and I'm like kind of interested in welding because I don't really know a lot about welding. I can't weld at all. I can do everything else, but I can't weld. And so I find it's super unique that my son's doing something that I have no idea how to do. And the cool part is he just secured his job. So he's in grade 11, just finished grade 11. And I worked with him to help him get a job. So he's doing some equipment fab work on building like a rail car equipment, cranes and stuff, which is super cool. So he kind of sends me these snaps throughout the day. Hey, look what I just built today. I built a headache rack for this 3-ton truck with a crane on it. And I'm like, dude, you're 17. Like you should really, live this moment, because like when I was 17, I was doing nothing like that, and the fact that he's, self-managing his own projects already at that age is, it's really exciting. And those are things for you to look forward to as well. Whether your kids become an entrepreneur, they become, a value resource for another business or another industry, when they figure out their passion, I think that's all we really want as parents. Like you said, you haven't worked a day in your life. I haven't either. I mean, there was a point in my life where I worked for a little bit, but when I became a bit of a serial entrepreneur, regardless of the wins and losses that we've taken, it still is a passion, and it's easy to go to work, whether it's good or bad, because every day you grow and develop, and essentially you're solving problems in some way, shape, or form for people. So, I love that you shared that about your family, and you got some exciting journeys ahead as your kids and your family as they grow. So I'm happy for you with that. I am curious, what is next? What's next for JobTread? Where are we going? Do you got any insider insight on some new AI tools that may be coming out the pipeline, or are they all top secret?
I mean, we've rolled out some some AI based features. I think it's interesting that we've really been watching and kind of, I mean, obviously we all use AI internally every day. Don't know how I'd live without ChatGPT at this point, almost like an addiction. But I do think that as we continue to see it improve, it'll be easier for us to keep implementing more and more of these features. I will say though that and again maybe I take a little bit different stance on this. I would say we're cautiously optimistic about it. I've seen a lot of companies that have very quickly kind of jumped on the AI bandwagon to the point where they've implemented things like where AI estimating, where it generates a budget, or does your takeoff automatically, things like that. Like again, like in theory it sounds awesome and incredible. My big concern though is that the accuracy is really not quite there right now, and it's going to require a whole lot more training, a whole lot more effort, and just experience for it to be able to get there. My concern too is that people are going to just naturally become dependent on this, and become I don't want to say lazy, because I'm not assuming people are lazy, but like to the extent where like you just stop double checking and triple checking your work. Like at the end of the day, like AI hallucinates. It literally makes things up, and I really worry that people are going to sort of see this as a shortcut, and they're going to cut corners to the point where like they could end up getting locked into a fixed price contract, and only later to figure out that like something was missed or something was wrong, and at the end of the day, like that could come right out of your bottom line, having to make that right. And I don't want to see people taking those shortcuts and not doing the work that needs to be done to ensure that their projects are being budgeted and estimated and managed accurately. Because that's again, sure, one day maybe it'll be there, but like I think we got to very sort of cautiously walk into this realm. I don't think that again, AI is going to just totally replace all the humans and everything. Like people naturally are going to want to buy from other people and want to work with other people. And they want to know that they can shake that person's hand, and that when things go wrong, whenever issues come up, they have somebody to call who's going to, navigate the waters with them, not just, this bot or this, machine learning tool. And so I think we really still got to, figure out what is the right place and what is the right balance for AI to be an assistant, to be a resource, but not a replacement. And so
Yeah.
that's where we're kind of, optimistically, but cautiously watching how can we implement these features without going too far, and without, again, at the end of the day, the last thing I want to do is have somebody be able to point the finger back at JobTread and say, well, JobTread told me this is what should have been in my budget, and JobTread told me this was the schedule, and JobTread
Yeah.
was wrong. Like, that's the last thing I ever want. And again, because we have no idea what AI might spit out. We have no way to know if it's accurate or not accurate. And that's where I just, I think it's got to be a tool and a resource in your toolkit, but it can't be everything, and it's not going to just do your job for you.
Right. I love that you said AI hallucinates, because it completely does. I use AI a lot, and it's going to be a huge part of my book that's going to be coming out right away too. We've created kind of like this custom GPT that's in it, and I think that's the one thing that you mentioned that I really want people to be mindful of is that it does hallucinate. It does veer. And if you just trust everything that it spits out, you're going to run into some problems always, every time. And there is no real way to cross-reference it all the time, other than reviewing everything and confirming that it's right or wrong. It is a bit of a challenge. And so I like that you're cautious with it. I think that that's a good road to go. There are some people that are all in on AI, and you can see the errors, like, oh, it doesn't do this, or it doesn't do that, or, oh, it's, and it isn't there yet. And there will always be this element of human connection where when shit goes wrong, like when shit goes wrong with Facebook, you got no one to call, and it's been like that for a long, long time. And it works for them, it doesn't work for me. And so it becomes a bit more of a challenge. And I like that, you guys are always there. You're always available to be a part of it. And I like that you also take the pride that, because if you incorporate AI, it will say that, well, JobTread told me to do this. And that becomes a big risk, that you have to navigate as well. And I think that that's just a known factor for you and I. We know that, but a lot of other people that, maybe are a little bit too trusting with AI, really heavily focus on what it does say and think that that's true. So I love that you're optimistic and cautious with it.
It kind of just reminds me of like when the notion of like the cloud came out, right? Like cloud computing and servers, and you thought everything was just, kind of up in the cloud. And it's like, to some extent, yeah, I mean, that's true. But I mean, there are still physical servers. There are still, things that are being hosted in these huge data centers. And it's like, I see the marketing rush, is there with AI. And like, it's every company wants to be at the forefront and wants to be able to say, we have AI and everything is AI and AI. And like, that's like what all the hype and the buzz is about. But I can tell you, like, so many people don't actually understand under the hood what's really happening. And then there's also a lot of smoke and mirrors. The name of the company escapes me, but like there was this AI company that basically, said that they built software applications and it just kind of churned it all together. But like actually under the hood, they had like, it was like 700, developers overseas somewhere that were like actually doing all the work. And there was no AI. I mean, sure, they were using AI probably to write the code, but like it was a bunch of humans behind the scenes, but they used the notion of AI just as a sales tool and as a marketing tool to try to get them all these clients. And then they end up going bankrupt, and like they cost, just all of these people, investors, all these clients, like everybody spent a fortune investing in them. And, again, it was all for nothing. We another example, we had an AI legal company, in the suite next to us. They actually never even got to move in because apparently they found out that, you should actually hire a real lawyer. If you need, an attorney, like you should hire a real person to be your attorney. AI attorneys are not that great of an idea right now. Like, have someone actually show up to represent you who is going to be there. And like, I think there's, we've seen just a lot of AI companies that have already come and gone. And I think that's what we're going to continue to see. And it's about what is the right technology? How do we implement this, again, where it's a resource, it's a tool, it's not the entire solution.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's not the entire solution, and I think that's what anybody that's utilizing it really needs to be mindful of, is that it's going to give you a perspective, and you're still in control of that perspective. You need to insert it and adapt it into your business in the ways that make sense and that service your clients. So I love what you guys are doing for your customers. It's incredible. If anybody is looking to opt into JobTread, what's the best way to do that?
Yeah, I'd say, just go to our website, www.jobtread.com. There's a ton of resources, videos. You can learn a lot about the different features and the services that we offer. We're happy to have you also. There's a schedule a demo button right at the top. We're happy to spend time walking you through, showing you exactly how it worked for your company, or you're welcome to just sign up and get right into it. All the implementation, training support, all that's included. Every new customer gets assigned a customer success manager who has construction experience. We try to kind of match you up with the best person on our team who really understands your industry, and then they will be your main point of contact. So they will learn your business, they'll learn how you operate, they'll learn your priorities, and they will be there, be that resource to help you get implemented. But there's tons. I mean, every day we've got live trainings that you can join in on, or you could, if you prefer to kind of watch them on your own, they're all recorded as well. We do live boot camps at least once a month here in Dallas, Texas. We've got our annual user conference, JobTread Connect, every January. So there's lots of ways, to get involved with us. But, I'd say it all really starts on our website.
Well, that's awesome. Well, there's the link right there for anybody that is interested in, working with JobTread. I would highly recommend it. It's a great product, and it'll be a great experience. And the biggest thing that I want everyone to do with this information is to take action. I think there are a lot of people in this industry right now that are slow to move with decisions, and AI is not everything, but action is everything. And you really need to start taking action in order to make change. So if you are just using QuickBooks, if you're just using some generic software to manage your projects, you will be left in the dust, because products like JobTread, and JobTread specifically, are really creating this unique client experience that you cannot replicate with a QuickBooks estimate sent out to your client. You just can't replicate that. And if all your scheduling and everything is in your notebook, you need JobTread. If you're managing any projects, more than one, like if you're managing like 2 or 3 projects at once, you need JobTread. And if you are considering starting a construction business, you probably need JobTread. It will be at some point that you need a product like this into your business. So you can be organized, because if you're organized and you can execute well on site, then your clients will tell all their friends and you will get more work. So if you want to be successful in this business, products like JobTread will help you get there. Eric, I want to thank you so much for taking the time today and sharing it with us. And I'm excited to see you in a couple months here at the summit. And as well, I hope you really enjoy Banff. It's going to be beautiful for you and your family. So thanks so
Yeah,
much.
absolutely. Appreciate you having me on, Brandon. Look, I just want to for a second give you a shout out, because, I think it's so important that we have people like you who are taking the time to share their knowledge, their experience, creating communities of like-minded contractors, people that are coming together. Because, I can tell you, I've seen the impact firsthand when people hire a coach, when they join, a coaching community, when they're, surrounded by people that are doing the same thing, going through the same challenges. Like, being part of that, it makes a tremendous impact on the trajectory of their business. Like, I see it every single day. And I think that we need more people like you who are willing to lead by example, who are willing to open up their playbook. They're willing to share the secrets of how they have built their businesses, and just being there, helping these people, because so many contractors, they just don't know what they don't know. And you can just shave off years of time by getting involved with people like you, Brandon, that can really help them. You can be that guide, that shepherd for them, that can show them how to get to their destiny a lot faster with a lot fewer headaches. And again, you're just skipping over some of those hard lessons that you've seen other contractors stumble and fall on time and time again. And so, my biggest advice for everyone, it's, again, you can have the software, but if you don't have the right systems, if you don't, know what you need to be doing, you got to have, a bookkeeper. You need to have, a set of financials. You need to manage that. You got to have your marketing in place. You got to understand the marketing funnel, the sales process. How are you going to convert these people? You've got to have those people who can help guide you. And that is where I'm seeing the biggest impact being made, is when people are working with, with coaches, and it's so important. And I can't encourage people enough to go find their tribe and find ways that they can continually surround themselves with people who are going through the same thing, or have already been through that, or similar size, similar mission, passions. Like, that's how you truly take your business to the next level. So I just want to thank you, because I know in the role you're in, often it's, it's a thankless position being a leader like that, trudging that new path forward. But I can tell you firsthand, it makes a huge impact, and I'm excited to see you keep building your community and your following, because it's gonna help so many others be very, very successful.
I appreciate that, Gas. I'll take it. And and the passion for me comes from the life lessons, good, bad, the ugly. I think what gives me, you know, a space to actually speak on is the wins and losses that I've experienced. I've gone to places where most contractors would never ever want to ever go in their life, and I think that gives me a little bit more of an edge, or a value, I guess, so to speak, because most people are terrified of a doomsday perspective, but they are also striving for this big win, and you don't get big wins without big risks. And so understanding how everything is interconnected really has given me the ability to really help a lot of the contractors that we work with. And like you say, it's a playbook that gets them there faster. Josh and John, for example, those are contractors that are using your product right now. In their first year of business, they were doing around 300K, I believe. I don't have the exact numbers, but they're on track right now for 2025 to do $3 million in revenue. They're saying 2.8, and I'm telling them no, three is a better number. Why would we say we're going to do 2.8 when we could do 3? And so I appreciate the gas, and I do believe, looking back at the first day I became a contractor, I needed somebody that has been there. And the cool part is, your product, your community also provides that level of resource, that level of support, integrating these softwares into their business. So, I mean, you're doing the same thing that I'm doing in a different perspective, and I appreciate what you're doing for the community as well. I think we're making together the construction industry a lot more powerful, a lot more successful, with a lot less shit to deal with. And so thank you so much for your time today. I really appreciate it. Great conversation. And maybe I'll see you in Banff.
All right. We'll see you soon.
Thanks, buddy.